Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and changemakers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. I'm Patty Dayleg, and we have a special series related to healing tides, which is one of my favorite projects that I've been working on the last few years. So Healing Tides is a leadership and renewal initiative for Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities in Southern California. It's through the St. Joseph Fund. And in this project, we're really believing, and we really hold this belief that a sustainable leader is the bedrock of a lasting organization. And a sustainable leader is also the cornerstone of thriving community and evolving movements. So our guiding framework really embodies that healing and that renewal for the leader. That healing and renewal is like the essence of the empowerment and the wholeness of a leader. So I've had the privilege of being a leadership coach within the program. I get to be one of the designers on the design team on the initiative. You'll get to meet the design team in the future. But this podcast series is really about bringing in the leaders and the organizations who we've had the privilege to hold space for. And so today, I'm so excited to have the amazing MAFANA. I have Phyllis Ngauamo and Ainise Isama'u. So Phyllis is a single mother, a caregiver, and program director of MAFANA, and Ainise is the executive director of MAFANA. And MAFANA is where strategy meets soul. She leads with vision, she builds bridges across communities, and she champions the voices of Pacific Islanders from the local to the national stage. With a heart for advocacy and a knack for turning big dreams into real-world impact, Ainise blends faith, leadership, and aloha spirit to keep MAFANA moving forward, one inspired conversation at a time. Welcome, Phyllis and Ainise. Okay, so my first question for you both, and whoever wants to come first, is what is something in your current day reality, something that you do or something that you're experiencing that a younger version of you did not know was possible?
I think for me, growing up in a Tongan household, and especially being a pastor's daughter, my mom was may she rest in peace, but she was an ordained elder for the United Methodist Church. I was very rebellious about growing up in that kind of household, and there was a lot of things that I was really wanted to not be part of, and that included doing things, our cultural traditions and rituals. I just was trying to find myself and who I was as a pastor's daughter, a Tongan female living in America. And I think I was just so stubborn to want to hear my mother's perspective or learn from other people or just even try to understand like where I'm at and the different intersectionalities that I hold in different spaces. And I think the rebellious side of me just didn't want to hear it until, of course, things happen that make you reevaluate life in some sense. And would I have ever pictured growing up that I was going to follow my mom's footsteps as a pastor? Absolutely not. Would I have ever pictured life following her steps even more in being an advocate for preserving our culture and traditions Tongan cultures and traditions. In fact, in life today, absolutely not. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful that a light was shown and that I think for me and I think also for Phyllis, like this calling that has, I always think that whatever it is that we do in life is a calling upon your life that you decide you want to say yes or no to. And for me, it was saying yes to it. And never would I have ever imagined that my voice and even in what I do today as a associate pastor here at Faith United Methodist Church would even lead me to be the executive director at MAFANA, which is allowing us to, just basically have a voice so that we can continue to bridge the gap so that people like me who didn't really identify who we were, who I was as a Tongan female American, all of those different titles, if you will, would be in a space where I can now create spaces for people who may be in the similar path or who are just looking to learn more about our culture and learn how we can figure out a way to take being American and being Tongan and somehow bridging them together so that we can continue to tell our stories. It's going to look different from those of our brothers and sisters that live in the island and whatnot. But I think, that's what makes it beautiful is being able to look at the different, things that make us our gifts and graces and bringing it together and forming it and knowing that, this space can be created and it can be shared with everyone. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that I met you when you were younger, this like rebellious version of you.
Phyllis has.
And I
Phyllis, what
and
about
just
you? What's
I
yeah.
think I would have to just add on to what Nisa said because both of us are actually pastors' kids. My dad's a pastor at the Methodist Church too. And what really to me I wouldn't say is crazy, but I find really ironic is both Nisa and I when we were younger, it was as if we were forced into it because our parents, the positions that our parents were in, and not realizing the blessing in how we know our culture now just because of the proximity that we had to it growing up. And, I've noticed that their proximity also allows you to see, firsthand how certain rituals and traditions are done from start to finish. Where those who are not around the culture or like our people, there's Tongans in the East Coast, and so it's not heavily populated like it is here on the West Coast. So they might not have regular programs that we have out here, like Dotupu, which is like a youth day, or every year where you get to practice like learning Bible lessons in the Tongan language, like Pakame. So I think like us actually building MAFANA is something that I didn't really see myself doing when I was younger. And I couldn't be more grateful because I'm learning so much with our Tongan language class and building our history class has also been a blessing too because there's aspects in our history that I didn't even know, and I used to think that I was kind of like a history buff, but just learning like how our ancestors were and like the migration patterns and like how they overcame or how they built like these crazy, amazing communities like in the early centuries. So I think it's great, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, congratulations on launching the Tongan language and now history classes. When we first met, this was an idea in your brains, you know? And it was a dream, and now it's a reality. The classes are happening. You have your organization set up. It's a whole thing in and of itself. Mafana is out in the world. And you both started with the people who kind of you carry with you when you lead, right? Your parents. I'm curious, who else is part of that, right? And also how your cultural values and Tongan ancestral teachings, how they guide you in approaching how you are building MAFANA?
I mean, I think for I think for the most part, you know, everything starts at home. And a lot of our core foundation is family. And that's where we start. That's where we learn first in our lotofale. And because of that, that is why mafana is something we hold very closely to our heart. And I say this because, we've had really strong women that's really poured into us, and especially led with faith and service, and we got to witness the work that they do, not in just the family circles but also in the community. So having those huge pillars in our lives, it just doesn't give us it really does propel us to a place where we can take what the foundation they've paid, and take that so that we can continue the work and the legacy that they've left behind. I think one of the huge examples for me is mom. We initially all lived in Hawaii and then migrated to Salt Lake. And then it was there that she received her calling to go into ministry. And then, of course, we moved to Texas so that she can go to seminary and etc. But I say this because there was all these different places that she had to live and had to grow and whatnot. And especially during a time when it was rare to have a Tongan female clergy. And she was one of 5 that was ordained. And to be a trailblazer during that time and to be a leader, a Tongan female leader in America, was something that was very unheard of. And it's those foundations that and I'm sure Phyllis can share more about her mother, but it's because of that foundation that we got to witness and we got to see and eventually see before she passed away, and that they became the matriarch of the family that held the treasures, the knowledge, the wisdom, the all of these golden nuggets. And it and and that is what Mafana is created upon. And it's because of people like her, and her name is Amelia Sivi, and people like Phyllis's mom, Sepa, like all of those people, that those blazers that really paved the way for us to continue on their legacy and their teachings and Akonaki and all the things that they taught us so that we carry it. We wrap our hands around it. We hold it with pride, and that, really continue to be, when you talk about who's our people, those are our people. Those are saints that we still carry with us. Really makes this dream of Mafana really come together.
I just for that question, I just like to add, like Nisa had mentioned, like having mothers who's, I mean, we've seen them, like, we've seen our families like host, just the way that they've never faltered under stress, which is crazy to me because a pastor's home is always crazy. You know what I mean? There's people that are coming to visit. We lived in Honolulu for a few years, and I mean, I couldn't remember a time when it was just us at our house. We were always, whether we knew the people that were coming in or not, we were like the closest church to the airport. And just being able to see our mothers like just work without complaining and understanding that the work is for everyone. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't see my mom, like close her doors to anyone. Just being able to be like a prayer warrior, not just for like my dad and our family, but for others throughout the years, and I think Mafana is just grounded on being able to receive that warmth in within an organization, because unfortunately it's like as time is going, it's like we're losing it. You know what I mean? In a way, like we're losing. A lot. We hear a lot of people like, "Oh, everything was different when grandma died," or You know what I mean? Either the matriarch or the patriarch passes away. And my prayer for MAFANA is that we keep it going when it comes to learning of our culture and our language, and welcoming those who don't have ties to our culture, because either they were adopted or they just weren't raised in a heavily populated community with like Tongans or Polynesians. Like it's open for everyone. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA. And I think for me, that's like something that I know we'll be able to create, because we were raised by mothers who just did everything so effortlessly and kind of gave us like the blueprint on how to run MAFANA, if that makes any sense.
Ooh, I'm so curious. Tell me more, that blueprint for MAFANA. Because MAFANA means warmth, right? That's like a spiritual, like burst of joy. Is that right? How does that how does that translate into the work that you are doing in MAFANA with your classes now and kind of your plan for what you have for the organization? How does that blueprint translate into the work that you're doing?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with taking what Phyllis is, just to add on a little bit more of what Phyllis had said. It's just taking what we grew up knowing, and and also eh, understanding also that we're also still learning as well, right? But it's taking all that we had learned growing up, connecting with other people who also learned growing up as well with our traditions and our cultures, and sharing it with the community. Because oftentimes or not, we encounter, even in our own children, because I have a 14-year-old and Phyllis has, three girls. We encounter situations where they don't know you know, what it means when visitors come over to the house, and automatically we know, oh, we have to go and serve tea. You know, we hear the common phrase, go and make some tea, because that was automatic. And it wasn't so much of like telling us what to do and us knowing not. No, it was the hospitality of it, of opening our lotofale to those that come, to making them feel at home, and understanding, like, with feeling at home is opening our kitchen so that we can get tea, make some mapakpako, put some little bit of whatever, because we know that they're going to stay here for a little bit, but they're going to need sustenance for the journey. So we encounter that right now with our children and our nieces and nephews that are still trying to, like me, find our way here in America, in this big country that we live in, right? And try to figure out how can I be American and Tongan? And how do I still know, how do I figure out how to be Tongan in America? And us understanding, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly how it is in Tonga, but we're going to figure out a way where we can bridge and fill in those spaces and fill in those little areas that make them feel that they're not part of something, and make them feel a part, like they're part of something, if that makes sense. So that's basically where Mafana is. Mom and both our mothers had this dream where we can figure out a way where we can still preserve and promote our customs and our traditions and our values in our Tongan communities. But again, like Phyllis said, but also understanding that this is open to everyone, and that we want to empower all Pacific Islanders to embrace their heritage and celebrate diversity and foster respect and understanding across generations. So I don't know. Maybe Phyllis wants to add on just a little bit from there.
No, I mean, I think with the blueprint, what I mean by the blueprint also is just, there's like a Tongan saying, okay, tonga pea tonga. Like I'm Tongan, I'm always going to be Tongan, kind of in a way. And especially living here in the diaspora, a lot of our kids don't believe that they belong.
Yep.
And and I'm not just saying it's a Tongan thing, it's a indigenous thing. You know what I mean? We go to like different parts of the world, whether we're here in America, Australia, or New Zealand. Like because we're not on our native land, there's something that we're going to struggle with because we're in a land that we don't belong on. However, something to help us thrive in these spaces is knowing our history, knowing our language, knowing why our grandmothers would say certain things in a certain way, right? Because it's the love is behind the context, if that makes any sense. Because a lot of grandmothers have harsh voices but kind words and context if we understand what they're saying and why. You know what I mean? So I think that's something that will be, the prayer is that we're able to foster helping the next generation with being proud to know our language, being proud to know what our history is, and that we're able to thrive anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, you can take us anywhere, pretty much. And whether we know like a little bit of our culture and our language, or we know the whole thing, and we just thrive. And I think that's just something that I want to like kind of ingrain into into our community and the next generation. So that for me is like kind of like part of the blueprint as well.
Yeah. I think you just healed a little bit of my inner teenager who would always fight with her grandmother because she would, like, she would, say things with love, of course. And I think, that teenager who was very, like, grew up in New Jersey, right? Like, just didn't have the context to understand the love behind it. And I love that you both are able to access that and to share it and to turn it into an offering for community. That's so beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about healing tides. And when I think of healing tides for you all, for you both, I think about the shifts that you have both been through on a personal level, because you've been through a lot these past 2.5 years that we've been working together. And you've turned that these shifts into something really amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about your personal journeys these past couple of years of working together?
Absolutely. And I think it's something that me and Phyllis connects really well with. I think for me, it wasn't just my mom passing, but the year after my husband passed away. And it was such a huge defining moment because it was one that really shifted everything, especially not just for me, but also for my daughter, who at that time was only 12. And I think for the most part, healing became less about as time continued, healing became less about moving on and more about moving through and finding purpose in the pain and using it to really connect deeper with others. And I found huge connection with Phyllis with that. So we connected on different levels but also on the same level in regards to healing and grief and figuring out how to live life, you know, without our moms, and me trying to figure out to live life without my husband. And that's honestly really the heart of MAFANA, where the heart of MAFANA lives. It's really transforming pain into purpose and community into healing. And I think one of the things that really taught me about kind of just this journey itself and all that's happened is knowing that someone else can learn from my story and that I can learn from their story. And it becomes this reciprocal way of communicating with each other that we can heal together rather than you go heal there and I go heal here and whatnot. So I'm just going to leave it there. I know Phyllis can share a little more about her story.
I think for me personally, with like healing tides, I mean, dude, we kind of did go through a lot of personal change. Before healing tides, I was working a corporate job, and my mom got really sick, so I stayed with her. And so when Nisa called about MAFANA and was just telling me about healing tides, I was like, of course, like she didn't go really into detail, but I didn't realize like how the planning process and like the coaching process would not only help Mafana but also help me in my personal life with like my entrepreneurial like ventures, if that makes any sense. So I don't know. For me, healing tides was a way to get my thoughts organized, not just for like Mafana, but for all the other things that I had going on. Just like okay, this is where we can put this idea. This is where we can put that idea. And then Healing Ties was also kind of because, with the coaching and like the get togethers that we did have, I was able to create one of my favorite memories with my mom with the candles, like recording that video and then
Yeah, take
even
your time.
even closer to her passing, asking why I decided to name the company after her maternal home or her ancestral home, not realizing that her time was like sooner than. But as Ainisa had brought up, and like we're gonna rewind it back to the beginning of Healing Tides. Like Healing Tides for us started what you said. I think she called me in September, and we started like the coach or in August. I think she called me in August, and I was like, yeah, sure. And then Noylin had reached out. I think in September, and we started our coaching. The second time we were supposed to meet, I had to text Noylin because we had a house fire. And I mean, everything's like, was like, it was just a chaotic time. And then Nisa calls me to her chapel and she tells me, because, she had just lost her mom that year. And she tells me, she goes, we were just talking about how these personal things that are happening to us, like, we have to look at it as a blessing. At the time, she says that, she was just saying, we were just talking and Nisa had brought up, like, I can now talk to people who have lost a parent. Because because, prior to her losing her mom, we don't know what to say. Like, even before my mom died, I'm like pretty awkward with death. Like, because you don't know how it feels when somebody loses a parent, or someone that close. And when she said that, I was just like, oh, wow. Now I know how it feels when your house burns, like when you see like your whole life like in flames, literally. And I was like, we're gonna take this and like what we're going through and help those, like we can find resources to help like people in our community that are going through similar situations. And if we don't understand what the need is, like we can we can either find people who do know what our community is going through, or we can, make partnerships with people who deal in certain other areas. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense. But I think, like, for us, our resilience in this whole time during healing time is a testament to, like, the women that raised us to persevere through whatever life gives us. Like, this is the blueprint that they gave us, this just be strong and just keep your faith up because everything gets better in time. So yeah, I think that's about it. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling.
No, it's so beautiful, right? To turn that pain into purpose and to community, and the fact that you both kind of experienced such grief over the past few years. And there's been a lot of grief in among the folks in Healing Tides. In fact, a few weeks ago we had to reschedule a training because everyone was heading to the Bay Area for a funeral of a Pacific Islander elder. And that is such a big part of the way that you serve, right? It's I think MAFANA would be different had you not had these losses, right? I'm curious, as you think about what nourishment and what like healing looks like now for yourselves as leaders, what has shifted for you in how you think about these things? I think you mentioned, Ainise, that it's not getting over, it's moving through. But yeah, I'm curious if you have other thoughts about what healing means, what nourishment means, what Phyllis, you said resilience means. And I think along the theme, it sounds like you're not coming into new knowledge. It's almost like you're remembering these lessons from previous generations. So yeah, curious what you think.
I think one of the phrases that Phyllis always tells me is, sis, you need to give yourself some grace. And I think grace is part of the shifting. It is very much part of this sacredness that we, that we find ourselves in when we're talking about healing. And all of it starts with having to heal our own hearts, and but heal it in a way where there's a space where we can cry. And I think just recently, me and Bonnie, not recently, I think a few months ago, me and Boniana had went to this place where we could smash dishes and stuff. But I feel like that's what healing is. Healing allows you to do it in ways where you can figure out how to work that out and out of your system, or not so much out of your system, but do it in ways that can help you continue to just heal your heart. And that may be screaming at the top of your lungs up on a hill in the middle of the night. I don't know. But but there's this grace that needs to be extended to yourself as you figure out, you know, how to keep moving through these things. There is people like us that are working through grief and figuring out how to live life without our loved ones that have passed on. And that's also part of MAFANA, and figuring out how to live life together, and so that people can feel seen and feel valued and feel empowered, and in honoring those that have passed on but living through their legacy today. I hope that answers the question. Did it?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
I think a part of healing is also sharing each other's knowledge, right? Like coming, because a lot of times we forget that, like, here in the Western world, everyone is like, I, me. But, like, coming from, like, these great countries, even though they're third world, in our DNA, we're meant to be around community, right? And I think building these different, I mean, all of the communities are here already, but we just need to not change anything, but just kind of like open it up to where all like the multi generational, it's like kind of seen and understood on all the levels, starting from the top, trickling down, you know? I'm excited, like, because I mean, if we're able to do what, we pushed through in these 2 years, and I mean, what we've gone through personally would have really altered a lot of people's like, oh no, I don't have the heart to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. And honestly, I'm still in my grief. But I think the resilience that our mothers taught us, and just seeing, like, honestly, like, it's crazy to me, like, just looking back at, like, what my mom was able to pull off. She doesn't come from, like, a big family. Like, she basically did
Right.
everything by herself. You know what I mean? Like, when it came to, like, making food for our kaipolas, like, hosting people at our house. Like, she wasn't the type like, oh no, this person's gonna come and do it. Like, she cooked, she cleaned, She did everything all by herself. And I think for me,
Mm.
resilience is just okay. If this lady can feed 100 people with $20, and I have all of these resources, like can I not? You know what I mean? How can I not help and feed other people? But it's also bringing people together and just sharing their knowledge. Like I mean, in our language class, just seeing how excited like the students are just to learn about like our history. You know what I
The
mean? And
basics.
we were just touching the surface. Like we didn't. I mean, not even touching. We were just like finger dipped in the surface. Like it was just and I was just like, oh wow, this is something that I didn't realize was not available to a lot of us here in America because they teach it in Tonga, but like you only hear tidbits here and there here in America. So yeah, I think to me that's healing is being able just to remember how our mothers did it, how we can do it, and we don't have to do it exactly how they did it. Because I know for sure I'm
Mm.
not as strong as my mom. I know for a fact. But just to, be able to push through and just see, because we don't know who God's going to use in any conversation or in any interaction. And if we're not able to create these spaces, sometimes people might not meet or like, get the things that they're supposed to learn, if that makes any sense.
Yes, everything that you're saying makes complete sense. I think one thing that I'm taking away from both of what you're sharing is that healing happens from like being with each other, and healing is also connected to like connecting back to what we know from the wisdom that our for you, your mothers were like really shared, and maybe not even spoke verbally, but like showed in their actions and what they were able to give to community. So when we think of tides, we think of movement, right? Ebb and flow and rest and action. What season is MAFANA in right now? And what do you kind of imagine the next wave being?
That's a good question. I think we are definitely in our beginning stages of what Mafana looks like with the launch and establishing ourselves business wise. I mean, on the back end, paper wise and whatnot. But man, we're just so excited for a lot of the dreams to come to, fruition, and really connecting with people that are willing, that has the willing hearts to really make these dreams happen. So, for instance, Phyllis happened to be in Tongan. I know she'll probably share a little bit more about this. And she's been had these connections. I mean, actually, she's related. She has relations in Tonga that have a long history of educating and teaching the language and know the Tongan culture, you know, and have taught it in many different platforms in different capacities. So she happened to be out there for, I believe, what was it that you were out there and you saw hi?
I was there for my candle business, and it was during a really busy time in Tonga, and it was crazy because we never had him our language director didn't even think about him until I saw him in Tonga. And so when I saw him in Tonga, I was like, oh my gosh, you would be perfect. I was like, you would be perfect. I'm like, you would be perfect. So, and mind you, I mean, it was just a crazy time in Tonga. There was like 50 million things going on during the Wiki Lala. And so, Wiki Lala is where they have like the pageant, the beauty pageant. And so, it was the church conference, the beauty pageant. One of the nobles was being installed into his title. And so, there was just a whole bunch of things going on in Tonga at that time, and it was just a blessing. And I mean, when I mean we were still looking for an instructor, not because I mean we both speak Tongan, but to have someone who can speak Tongan and teach how to properly write and read in
Right.
Tongan, And then also teach the class like Doya Hai teaches it is really rare to find, if I'm honest. It's pretty
Right.
rare to find the way that he teaches the language. I mean, and just his knowledge, like not just on the language, but history and protocols. And it's because, I mean, his grandfather was actually the founder of the first university in the Pacific. Like, I don't think it was including Hawaii, but he was the founder of the first higher education in the Pacific, which I believe they opened in like the mid to late 70s, maybe even the late 60s. But his grandfather's name is Hutaelu, and he was highly regarded in Tongan, not just in Tongan, but all of the Pacific, for his knowledge on history, on his knowledge of dance, his knowledge, the philosophy
Language.
of language, and then also the philosophy of the Polynesian people as a whole. I've been reading some of his old essays, and I mean, I'm just like, wow, you know. And so Tuyahai was actually raised with his grandparents, and it's crazy to see. So we'll be in a class, and you know, as we're in the middle of the class, like he brings something up, and I'm like, oh wow, I never knew that. And so when we have like our little debrief after the class, he was just like, you know what's so funny, Lucy? Like, you know, he calls me Lucy. You know what's so funny, Lucy? I wasn't even, I totally forgot about that point, but I just remembered when my grandpa used to say it, and that's why I brought it up. And I'm like, we're
Mm.
so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so blessed with him. So that answers the question. And I think for the tide part, I think because throughout the past 2 years, even though like it's taken us a while to launch, I mean, Healing Tides and St. Joseph's
We have a
actually,
dream list.
we have a dream list, but Healing Tides and St. Joseph's has actually given us or afforded us the opportunity to be very
Yep.
strategic in our planning from the beginning of this until now. And so like
Yep.
our dreams look more like reality. I mean, who knows? We might be
Reality.
reality. Like, I mean, we don't know what 2026 has to offer, but with the planning and like the developing that we've done personally and within MAFANA, like, I
Right.
don't know, we might have a tsunami next year. Who knows?
I mean, I mean, just to confirm that we are wrapping up Tongan Language 101, our first class this week. So it ends this week. I know, right? So I know Phyllis and I have been working really hard. I mean, we've collectively worked really hard, and it's just been such a joy. Up next is our Tongan History 101. The flyer will go out later on today. It's really is a journey into, as Phyllis had said, it's a journey into the roots and wisdom and stories that kind of shape who we are as people. It's just really it's part of our commitment to really reclaiming and celebrating Pacific Islander heritage. And there's so many other projects and classes that we'll be offering. We just both finished working our mother's funerals. And there are so many different moving pieces and nuances in it itself that a lot of our brothers and sisters who are our age or younger than us, or maybe even older than us, that may not know. And it's not because they don't know, because they don't care, or whatever it may be. But there are certain aspects and certain customs and rituals that need to be done for a Tongan funeral that sometimes they may not know the people to do those things, or may not be connected to somebody that doesn't necessarily know what needs to be done in these certain parts of the funeral. One of those classes is figuring out a way, not figuring out a way, but connecting how to do those things and talking about it with somebody that is knowledgeable, that have done it many times, or have can share what their experience is in regards to funerals that they had worked, that can share it with people. And I only bring that up because I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a lot of people that are passing away that is younger and younger and younger. And there's parts of me that know that MAFANA could help in different ways. And not just in funeral wise, it can help in weddings, it can help in all these different avenues that we are praying that these dreams that we've kind of put together in this list, you'll eventually, or in the community eventually will see and hear of.
I love that you are doing some of the most sacred and like biggest events of people's lives and communities' lives, and also some of the most kind of everyday, right? That your teacher for the language class was like, oh, I forgot about that until I remembered my grandfather just used to say this when I was in the house, you know? All the way from that to commemorating someone's life in a way that honors their Tongan roots. That it really is this whole kind of spectrum. I'm so excited to see what MAFANA brings to the world. Is there anything else that needs to be expressed in this space before we close out?
I just want to say thank you, Patty, to you and like the design team, everyone from St. Joseph's for creating Healing Tides. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're so blessed and fortunate for this because, I mean, I could just, for me personally, not only did it help me with building MAFANA, like, you know, what we want it to look like, but then also like showing us that we can build it around us. We don't have to like build it like a traditional nonprofit, if that makes any sense. To where, you know, like both of us are single moms. We carry not just like our families, but you know, we also extended family obligations and our own things, and just giving us like the okay to say, okay, it's okay to, you know, to make it like this. You know what I mean? There's no traditional way because since we're building from the ground up, we can build it to where it can accommodate our families and the community. So thank you. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Oh, I agree. I couldn't agree more with Phyllis. Just thank you for creating a space where we can feel grounded and feel restored in some sense. I think Healing Tides has, I think Phyllis had said that it had said it best, that it's come into a time of our lives that really gives us this new, renewed sense of purpose, pain into purpose, right? We're just really thankful. And we say, Malo Aupito, for all of the love and care that has been poured into us. And we pray that we just continue it moving forward.
Honestly, it is our honor. We as a design team always talk about how this is one of our favorite projects because we get to hold space for folks like you who are pouring so much joy and love and just yourselves into community. And this is for you to be able to continue to do that, right? Like the renewal part and the nourishment, like I feel like it's part of my purpose to be able to hold that space for you all. So thank you for allowing us to witness you. Thank you for allowing us to kind of guide you in this and hold space for the amazing things that you are offering out into the world, and for just being yourselves and allowing yourselves to build so strategically and with so much love. It's such an honor to see because it also is this example for what's possible in the world. Yeah. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Thank you so much for being part of Healing Tides. We're going to add all of the links for MAFANA in the show notes so that folks can get in touch with you and learn more so that we can continue to see what you put out into community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something. which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.